Dad, your video?
That's not today.
It's right now.
Oh, hi guys. Hello YouTube, welcome to my channel. My name is Sayerberg. My friends call me Drew, which is funny because they know my name is Will. Oh well, it is what it is. I hope you enjoy the video. I wanted to make this little video on how to make pour spouts for your contact cement. I'm new to this whole maker vid stuff, so bear with me. So the problem is, with contact cement, we want to use nice, neat little containers like these instead of these big honking cans where you got a dip brush in there and you've got the whole can open. You don't need the whole can. You just use a little squeeze bottle, and I learned this trick from Svetlana over at KamuiCosplay, and I might as well get the rest of them out of the way. So I watched her video because I was wanting to learn how to put together foam props, and hers, said, "What's the best glue?" And I was like, "That's a good thing to learn." So I watched that video. I also watched Chris at Lost Wax, and he put together a sword. I liked and disliked some of the things about that video, and I will get into that later. Punish Props Academy, Bill and Britt. Those folks are great. They've got a lot of different videos. The one in particular that I linked here, if I remember correctly, is a video where they talk about priming and different kind of top coats and stuff like that. We've got Buddy at Buddy Cosplay. He showed me how to make these little sanding sticks, but he got the idea from Evil Ted. He also demonstrated a sandability issue with Quick Seal. Seems to be the go-to product for fixing your seams and filling holes and stuff like that. And I'll talk about that at the end. So we want to use squeeze bottles or reuse the small jars, so we're using smaller amounts, not these huge cans. But the huge cans are much cheaper. So we're going to talk about how to get the contents into your squeeze bottle. And the obvious way is a funnel. So you go down to your kitchen, you grab your funnel, you fill your bottle, then you take it back downstairs and put it in the sink, and someone who used to love you now wants to murder you. Don't use your good kitchen funnels. It's a bad idea. You could use other plastic funnels. You can get cheap plastic funnels, but it'd be hard to clean out. So not a great idea. So then we have paper funnels, but then you're going through a paper funnel every time you want to do a refill, and it's just kind of a waste. So one person suggested tinfoil, and I don't remember who it was. It was pretty sure it was one of the guys that I listed here, or girls. I can't remember for sure. So again, the problem with tinfoil is it's a one-off, then you throw it away, and so you're just wasting things. So I thought, why not repurpose something? I had some of those buckets. What happened to my buckets? Oh, hi George. So, buckets. I had some buckets that had cracks in them, so, well, they're no good anymore, but, you've got this plastic that you can reuse for things, so I try not to throw things like that away because they're reusable. And so why not make a pour spout out of your buckets? So what we did here is I took one of my buckets, I cut up the side, I cut the bottom off, and you know it's ready to be turned into pour spouts. This one was used to make a pour spout already. You can find these buckets anywhere you can find paint. So you can find them in hobby stores, hardware stores, big box stores. If it sells paint, they probably have mix and pour buckets. They are generally made out of one of two different materials, either polypropylene or high density polyethylene, HDPE. You look at the bottom of the bucket, there will be a little triangle logo for your whether it's recyclable, and it'll say either PP or HDPE. I find that the HDPE buckets, the contact cement cleans off a little easier if you've let it sit for a while. The polypropylene buckets, as long as you haven't let it sit like overnight, it's still really easy to clean off. So you should clean it up as soon as you're done, filling up your bottle. So in my case, I, used them, then I set them aside while making the video the other day, and so I had glue left on there. I don't know how well you can see it, but it does come off still pretty easy because this is a HDPE bucket. I had another one that was PP, and it did not come off as easily. It still came off, but it was definitely taking more work. And you can kind of pull it off like latex. So a couple things. You want a nice wide lip on your bucket. The reason is you want it to fit down in there like so and stay. So now we can pour our glue without making a mess. Then we tip it up, the excess falls back into the can. We use a little scrap piece of foam and wipe down the extra glue. And if your funnel, or your pour spout I should say, is dirty with old glue, the solvents in your fresh glue is going to start to dissolve it, and then you're going to end up with little clumps that are going to drip back down into your can. That can't possibly be good for your glue. So we pop that off, and that's still clean. Now, you'll notice that lip of thick wet glue there. And the reason that is because the inside edge of this channel here, it bevels inward a little bit, like that. So you've got your flat pour spout pressed up against your funnel like so, and so you have that little channel. So that'll fill with glue. So this lip around here does get a little bit of glue on it. Not a lot, but you should clean it off. It'll help keep your can cleaner. I hadn't been cleaning it off, and so mine's a little sticky. Oh well. Stuff happens. Poop occurs. This one, the reason I have hot glue around the base of this one is because the smaller can, that's just a 16-ounce can, had a slight issue. The lip doesn't fit in quite as nice, and so it just pops off. And that's no good. So I coated this with a release agent. I used WD-40 because it was handy, and I don't actually have any proper release agents. Use whatever you have handy that will work, and you'll be good to go. The WD-40 worked perfectly fine. I didn't have any problems. Put it on the can, keep it off of your bucket, because you want the glue to stick to the bucket. But then when we pop that down in there, it has a lot more stability, and you can just grab that edge there just to be safe. And once again, you can pour without making a mess. And you just wipe it off again. Squeak, squeak. You have the same problem with the small one that you have with the big one. You end up with a little channel of glue around the outside edge. So there is a little, cleanup necessary, but it's significantly better than, when you just pour directly out of the can, because then that whole channel gets full. It drips down the side of your can. It's just a huge mess, and who wants that? So the pour spout, definitely better. There are some commercial pour spouts that you can get in some paint stores. I had found them before. I couldn't find any when I got these cans, so that's why I made my own. They're usually silicone. You can probably still find them online without any trouble. So if that's the way you want to go, then go that route, by all means. But this was a much cheaper method for me because I had the buckets and they were damaged, so they couldn't be used as buckets. They were just scrap plastic. So it's kind of like free. I mean, sure, I paid for the buckets to begin with, but once they were trash, it's not useful anymore. So now I got this. It's called a paint dozer. I had hoped that I could use this for the purpose of cleaning out that lip. It probably works better on a regular paint can than it does this contact cement can. It might work on the barge contact cement or on whichever one Svetlana had suggested. I can't get the contact cement that Svetlana suggested because, well, I live in America. It's not available here unless I want to pay a fortune for it, and I didn't. Which is also why I went with weldwood instead of barge, because weldwood is significantly cheaper. Some have said that they had problems with weldwood, but I used weldwood, not on this one. That one was hot glue. I used weldwood on this, and I used the same technique that Svetlana used, and I tell you what, that stuff's not opening at all. If you didn't get a spot cleaned up real well, you just crimp it open like this, apply a little dab of glue, work it in there with like your piece of foam, wipe off all the excess, let it cure for about a minute, 2 minutes tops, which yes means you have to hold it open for 2 minutes. Then go ahead and pinch it closed again, and it'll stay. I think the bond does get stronger over time. It's supposed to be dry in 15 to 20 minutes, but I've had, I've glued things and they've immediately been stuck. But I think if it's like within a couple minutes after you've glued it, if you were to try and peel open that seam, you might get somewhere, at least a little bit. But I guarantee the next day, because this I made several days ago, and that's permanent. That's not coming apart. If I try to take this apart, I'll damage the foam, not the glue. So this I had glued together with hot glue as a test, and I decided I did not like hot glue for gluing my seams. The joint will have a thin little line of rigid glue, and so if you're making like a sword prop and you have buddies around and you have a sword in your hand that won't actually hurt them, your instinct is to whack your buddy. In my case, I'm making these for my kids, and I know that they're going to smack each other with them, so I don't want that hard edge right there at the edge of a sword, axe, etc. That's just not good. So with the contact cement, the edges are just as soft as the rest of the foam, so you don't have that same issue. So getting the contact cement into our squeeze bottles, like this one, as you can see, tiny little hole. I'll use this one because it's still on my desk. So my paint dozer is only good for opening the cans at this point. So I get my funnel, or my pour spout. Now, does it need to be this long? Probably not, but I do like having it this long, and there's a reason. The closer it is to your the can, the less you'll be able to tip the can before it starts pouring. With my fresh brand new big can, I had a small pour spout to start with, and I almost made a huge mess because it just wanted to pour off in a big sheet, and so it was going to go over the sides, and thankfully I stopped it just in time and I didn't make a mess. You want to bend the pour spout down like this so that it channels all that glue into the tip of the spout, to the drip edge. If you don't, it'll just pour off the side of, or the end of the pour spout in a sheet, and it'll go everywhere again. But even though I almost made a little bit of a mess, you can see there's a little drop of glue on the one side here, maybe. It's easy to reclaim the unused portion. Voila, we're done. Pop that off, set it aside. And that's it. So now our bottle is full and we're ready to go. If you're going to be working with EVA foam or any kind of plastic shaping, I definitely recommend that you get yourself a heat gun. For this purpose, you don't need to set it on high. If the plastic goes clear, you got it too hot. When it cools again, it's going to be a little more brittle. You've changed the structure of the plastic, and it won't be good. It'll break fairly easily. So set it to low and you'll be fine. What we're going to do is first we're going to make this little drip edge. You'll see it's like the end of a pitcher. You've got that little edge there. You'll need either a wooden dowel or a metal rod. I happen to have a stainless steel pen. I use this to make my drip edge. So you heat that up, just kind of rock it back and forth, press that in there, and you'll get your shape. Once you're happy with your drip edge, then go ahead and heat the angles, bring it in. You'll want to press right here a little bit to give yourself a good geometry. Make sure it's warm. This one I didn't make sure it was as warm as it needed to be, and so I created a little structural fail in the plastic, and so later when opening it up to clean it out, I cracked it. So I'll have to make a new one of those at some point. So without further ado, go about halfway around. So we'll cut it off right about here. I cut off the corners just so that there's no little sharp edges or sharp points on them to poke me later while I'm trying to work on stuff. You should probably wear gloves while doing this, but if you're getting it so hot that you can't touch it, you're probably getting it too hot. So it depends on how sensitive to heat you are. I'm used to working with PCL plastic, you know, that's your polymorph and Instamorph, and I tried that for making the little lip around the back edge. I have these little rods that I made because I can't find my bag of, I think it was Instamorph that I bought. It does not stick to this plastic. It sticks to some plastic, but not this plastic. So for me, it was worthless. It did not help me at all. So one thing real quick, I know there's a lot of, he's about to do it. Nope, he's not. He's still talking. He's gonna do it. Nope, he's got more to say. Man, does this guy ever shut up? So this lip here, I've been trying to think of ways that I can fortify this lip to where it'll fit, you know, into that ring there a little better, so that you don't have that trough of glue. And I thought about hot glue and just, you know, beveling it off, and it'd take care of this lip completely. You wouldn't have that lip anymore. But the contact cement actually adheres to hot glue pretty well. It was actually kind of difficult to clean the contact cement off of the hot glue later. So that wasn't going to work. I've also considered using like a silicone caulk. Might be able to use the quick seal, I don't know. I could try. Bonds like a glue, seals like a caulk. I don't think it'll stick to this actually. I don't know. I'd have to try it. It'll probably fail. So another thought was I was going to take another piece of the plastic, trim it down, you know, so it fits, glue it in place, kind of sand off, you know, the lowest edge, you know, so it'll match the geometry of the can's inner edge, and it might work. I don't know. Different ideas. If you come up with something, please let me know in the comments, and we'll see what we get. So, without further ado, he said that before, let's give this a try. You can kind of judge whether it's getting hot enough or too hot if you touch the plastic. You want it to where you can only just touch the plastic for a couple moments, because this part is going to require a lot more shaping, so it needs to be a little hotter. But you need to watch it, because if it starts to go clear, you've gone too far. And you want just that edge, so that you're only deforming that edge. Otherwise you'll create a little bit of a ripple there, and you won't like that. Heat it up a little more. Now, when you soften the plastic, it's going to want to go back to its original shape. So keep that in mind. You might need to revisit your drip edge later. Okay. Got a nice little, it's not too prominent, but it'll work. Try and make sure it's centered too. So then we can do the side flaps. Just let that cool a little bit. Work on the other side a little. Yep, that one's toasty. I'm thinking I'm not going to decrease this one quite so much as the others. So it's a little more open, because then I don't have to open it up as much to get in there to clean. But you definitely want some shape there so that you can channel the glue where you need it. If you don't, you'll have a mess. And we don't want a mess. So that's about what you want to see. So I'm going to leave it like this. There are some things you can do, because depending on the size of the lip and the bucket that you use, what the bucket's made out of, etc., etc., it may or may not, fit as snug. This one fits pretty good, so this is a good bucket. But there are some things that you can do to help firm it up. And the hot glue is actually a great solution here. It'll serve a couple purposes here. When you fill that bottom channel there, and fill that first, it'll soften that plastic from the heat from the hot glue, and it'll help it hold that shape a little better. And then when you build up a few extra layers over the top of that, it'll give it a little more structural integrity. So it'll be good. And that's really it. That's your pour spout. So if that's all you came here for, you can shut the video off now. If you came here and wanted to know the rest of my glue related topics, stick around. Glue related topics. So I tried a couple things with hot glue. I sealed this side. I heat sealed it. I left this side raw. Then I used low temp and high temp. The high temp bubbles a lot. Let's see if it'll focus in there. Let's try this one. You can kind of see the bubbles. There they are. All right, so, and the bubbles actually prevent it from adhering to your foam. You can actually just peel that right off of there. The low temp adheres to the foam quite well. While you can still peel it off, it takes foam with it. So it was sticking to the foam. Now that's not going to matter in most cases, because you're not just squirting some on there and letting it dry. You're squeezing it between two pieces, and that's going to squeeze out all the air bubbles, and it's going to force it together, and it's going to get in there a lot deeper, and you're going to have a stronger bond. Bill and Britt over at Punish Props, on their sealing video, which is linked below, they had used contact cement before using one of the materials that they were using, and so they primed it with contact cement, then they painted over it with whatever they were using, and it stayed bonded. And I had noticed that the quick seal and my acrylic paint, I have some deco art, I have some what is that, folk art, they also don't adhere to the foam. I mean, it'll stay there, but if you cause any damage to it and rub on it, it'll just peel right up. So I tried priming it with contact cement and then applying the quick seal, and this stuff is friggin' bulletproof. That's not coming up. I mean, I have hard nails. I mean, now I dug at this, and you can see there is a little spot there, and you can see that it's actually damaged to the foam, not, it wasn't that I damaged the quick seal, I damaged the foam. And that's the only way you're going to get this up. You have to literally tear the foam apart. Works just as well with the acrylic paint. So I can't say enough about using contact cement. I love it in all the aspects of EVA foam prop creation. Now I haven't done a lot of EVA foam creation, and the reason I got into it is because I had all this packing material, and I made, you know, my youngest a couple foam knives, and he loved it. So my youngest son wanted one, and so I made it. And then my youngest daughter wanted one, so I made her a sword. Then my oldest son, he wanted a sword, so I made him a sword. But well, like this is very durable stuff, but if you get a little tiny nick in it, now you can tear it. So the way they were using it, it wasn't going to hold up. So I looked up some videos, and I made some EVA foam swords. I used the techniques from Lost Wax. So I created a PVC core. The contact cement will glue to the PVC core beautifully. You just apply the glue directly to the core, or to the PVC, or CPVC is actually what I've been using, and it'll work. It works great. So my first project, I made this lovely little blade here for my daughter. So, and the PVC inside is curved and shaped all the way out to here. It runs actually right along this back spine. I wasn't completely happy with this one, and I should have looked at more videos, because then I'd have known to use something like Plastidip to seal the foam afterwards, and that would prevent some of the damage that this has received. I got little pinholes that they put into it, and so yeah. But you definitely don't want the PVC near the edge if you're going to be handing it to a 10-year-old who's then going to use it to whack their brother and or sister, because these are actually quite tough, and if you hit the PVC side, that will actually hurt. There's maybe 2 millimeters of foam, if that, between this edge here and the PVC. There's very little give right there. So I'm going to remake this one. The blade will sit a little further back, and it should be a lot better. So fingers crossed. And then I'm going to go ahead and Plastidip it. Now I haven't tested the Plastidip yet, but I think I'm going to do the same thing with the Plastidip. I'll try one block with no contact cement. I'll try one block with contact cement. Spray them both with the Plastidip or Flex Seal, whichever you happen to have handy, or whatever other brand you can get locally, or cheaper. Use what you want to use, and I'll test them and I'll see which one adheres better. Because Plastidip is actually supposed to be able to be peeled off, but it's supposed to be peeled off of things like pliers, or a screwdriver, something that's really super hard. It might adhere to the EVA foam a lot better than obviously steel. So we will see. We will find out what's going on. On this is actually EVA foam wrapped around here. And if you start from the bottom and work your way up, it will have the proper top-down, you know, kind of like shingle effect. But if you look right here, oops, this one, there's a little bit of damage right there. And what had happened was, I didn't have a long sheet of 2mm foam. I had just a craft sheet, and so I cut it into strips. I beveled the edge. I glued the beveled edges together so it would have a longer, adhesion instead of just the tips. And then I sanded it smooth so you couldn't see, the joint lines anymore. And then I wrapped it around, and voila, it was beautiful. It was perfect. But I decided to hit it with a heat gun so it softened some of the edges and allow it to, better hold the shape of that I had, imbued it with. And I had that spot open up. That was where a seam was. And because it was stretched taut, I could not reclose that seam. It was open. So I sanded that spot flat. I applied some contact cement. I put another piece of foam on top of it, and then I sanded it until it, didn't really look like it was there. And then I just painted the whole thing like I, was going to in the first place, and voila, unless you were really examining it or you knew where to look because you had watched the video, you wouldn't really notice that. I mean, it's pretty minor. And considering my kids are probably going to destroy these anyway, I don't care. This was my first attempt. Not completely happy with it, but overall, it came out pretty good. I like it. And this is just some gold acrylic paint, brown paint, gold paint, and silver paint. I used the metallic folk arts to get these sheens, and they look pretty good. They're not perfect, but I don't need them to be. It's just for the kids to play with. So then my youngest son, he wants the Hellboy sword that Adam Savage made on, what is it, One Day Builds or Tested One Day Builds, whatever his channel is. He made a Hellboy sword. Now, he took some artistic liberties with his sword. His sword had a point like this. Now, the comic that actually shows the sword, it's cut off like this. It doesn't come to a standard double-edged sword point. So he did take some artistic liberties, but otherwise, I've got, the neat little sword, and I did do a bevel. So I took 3/4 inch pipe down to 1/2 inch pipe and back up to 3/4 inch pipe. I used some of my PCL Instamorph, whatever it was, and filled in those gaps. And I wasn't going to go back up to the 3/4 inch. I was just going to make the pommel out of foam. I'm still going to add foam for the pommel, but I was trying to balance the sword. And just the PVC, as it was, without the foam, the balance point is about a hand span away from the guard. And then I added the foam, and obviously the balance point was definitely wrong. It's still wrong, but it's better than it was. Now you'll notice my Bondo here. That's actually not Bondo. That's craft foam. When I glued it together, there was a little recess going down the middle of the blade. And no, it was not the fuller, as some of you call the blood groove, which actually was not designed to allow you to remove the blade more easily, because the theory behind it was that, you know, the blade, once stuck in someone, was going to create a vacuum, you know, for pulling it back out, and the blood groove would allow you to, you know, pull it out more easily. That's not actually what the fuller was for. It might allow for that to happen, but that was not its intent. It was to allow you to lighten the blade without reducing the structural integrity of the sword. So the groove, or the recess, was kind of annoying. So I went ahead and I covered the sword in contact cement. I applied a sheet of foam, and then I sanded it down, and now it looks like I Bondoed it. This is what it looks like when you haven't sanded it down. So then I'll sand it smooth, and I'll get rid of all those little divots. And then we'll be good to go, and I'll be happy. Well, that's it, folks. If you liked the video, hit like. If you disliked the video, hit dislike. Of course, feel free to subscribe and leave comments below what you liked, what you didn't like. Was I too loud? Was I not loud enough? Whatever suggestions you have, I will try and answer any questions you have. And if you have ideas for things that you'd like to see me try to make, I'll see what I can do about that too. Have a great day and keep crafting. Are you still here? Why are you still here? It's over. Go to sleep.